Football News presents today's Sports Report with Matthew Hall. On today's Sports Report, we'll talk about University of Georgia football and more. Today's Sports Report is brought to you by Happy Sewing and Quilting, offering products that will help you show your bulldog pride. Hall Shots Photography, going above and beyond to provide pristine and professional photography for all of life's greatest moments, plus many other fine sponsors. And now, here's your host of today's Sports Report, Chris Hall.
Well, welcome to today's Sports Report with Matthew Hall. I am Chris Hall, your host, and the good-looking guy on the right there is Matthew Hall as we come to you today in the brand new year of 2021. And we're going to talk some college football. The college football season apparently for the early part of 2021. Of course, the new football season will start later on in September of 2021 or late August. But for this early part of 2021, the football season is over. And, of course, the game that wrapped it all up was the national championship game between the University of Alabama and Ohio State. What a game it was. I watched every single second of it and enjoyed it. Not that I am necessarily an Alabama football fan. You know, here at today's Sports Report, we're all about the Georgia Bulldogs. But the Alabama Crimson Tide from the SEC ticket to Ohio State from the Big Ten, winning the national championship game. So we'll talk about that a little bit, review that game some for the benefit of our Georgia fans and our Alabama fans that check in. And then we'll talk about a little bit about University of Georgia, who's leaving, who's staying, and take a sneak peek toward 8 months from now or so when the University of Georgia will take the field against Clemson and Charlotte. Boy, won't that be a good game, and we'll talk about that coming up in just a few moments. But, Matthew, you're looking good and you're brand new. I think, if I remember correctly, that is a brand spanking new Georgia hat, is it not? With UGA styling on the top of it. Wow. How you doing today?
We're doing well, hanging in there, and great to be with everybody today. And, man, the college football playoff national championship game, I mean, it was a good game. I mean, Alabama really kind of flexed their muscles a bit and showed what they were really all about. And just a good game, though, overall. I expected Alabama to win, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, and you got to give Alabama props. This may be, and I'm just from an outside observer, this may be the best Alabama football team that Nick Saban has had. They're just very reminiscent of LSU last year when they steamrolled everyone going to the national championship game. And in fact, in post-game comments, Nick Saban, the coach for, of course, for Alabama, he kind of hinted, though he didn't go out and say it, but he kind of hinted this probably was from top to bottom, offense, defense, special teams, all the way around, his very best football team. And that is saying something. An all SEC schedule, running the table in the SEC, which is, amazing. And then, of course, steamrolling through the playoffs. So props to Nick Saban. I know you want to echo that as well, even though we're Georgia fans, and we hope that Georgia will be on top next year. You got to give props to our neighbors to the west, the University of Alabama. Just a great team, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Mac Jones at the helm, and then, you have Najee Harris. I mean, just a guy who really brought a lot of memories of a Derrick Henry type running back, to the table for Alabama. And then, the wide receiving core, I mean, even with, the injury sustained, I mean, the wide receiving core was just unbelievable. I mean, Devontae Smith, I mean, dream wide receiver. I believe he definitely deserves the Heisman, and he'll he had an opportunity to leave last year to go to the draft, chose to stay. And I would definitely say that benefited him, in the upcoming NFL draft.
Yeah, Devontae, just fantastic. Let's just quickly recap this game a little bit before we get on more safer ground when we talk about the University of Georgia. The final score in the championship game, 52-24. Alabama finishes 13-0. Ohio State 7-1. Ohio State kind of held in there for a while, stuck with Alabama for a while. But you just had the feeling as you watched the game that Alabama had too much on Ohio State. In fact, and here's kind of a trivia for our Georgia Bulldog fans, the only team this year to lead the Alabama Crimson Tide at halftime in a game was the University of Georgia. Of course, when the second half began, it kind of went downhill from there. But UGA, hey, we won the first half against the national champions. So you got to give props to Georgia at least for that. But Alabama winning over Ohio State 52-24. Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith led the Crimson Tide with 215 yards and 3 touchdowns, all in the first half. All in the first half, because early in the second half, he was injured, didn't come back into the game. Alabama didn't need him. But in the first half, the dude, who at one time, I hate to kind of bring this up, but at one time was a commit to Georgia and flipped to Alabama, the dude had 215 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half. Now, Matthew, over the years, as you were growing up, you and I played football out in the front yard, sometimes against each other, sometimes against the neighborhood kids. As far as I remember, you never had in any of those games 215 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half against your Pop. What a first half, huh?
Yeah, I mean, just really just an epic game to highlight, just an all-around stellar season. Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, all day long. I mean, and you got to think about it. I mean, it's very rare. It's kind of rare to see a wide receiver of that caliber, and especially a wide receiver of that caliber win the Heisman Trophy. So, the first half that Devontae Smith played in that game, I mean, it will go down as one of the greatest halves by a wide receiver in college football history. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, he was just a man in that ball game in the first half, and we're not anti-Alabama, but we're certainly not pro-Alabama. We're all about the University of Georgia. But it was really, for me, a joy to watch, Devontae Smith play in that first half. Just precision passing from Mac Jones, wonderful hand and footwork and speed from Devontae Smith. And, I kind of listened to him when he received the Heisman Trophy and then in the aftermath of the championship game. And he seems like a quality human being, very humble, and not really a big guy at all. I mean, he's not a big guy at all. Long arms, very stellar hands, quick feet, everything you want in a wide receiver. He's certainly, I believe, going to have a great career in the NFL. But Devontae Smith just showing out was the offensive player of the game. Most valuable player in the championship game. Again, 215 yards, 3 touchdowns in the first half. Now, I did a little research on the University of Alabama, and you got to give these guys props. What a season they had. They averaged 48.5 points a game. That is the most in SEC history. Nick Saban won his 7th national championship. That is the most in the AP poll era. Devontae Smith finished with 3,965 career receiving yards, most in the SEC history. He had 23 touchdowns this season. That's most ever in an SEC season. He had 12 receptions in one game, and that, of course, in the championship game, most ever in a championship game. He had 3 receiving touchdowns in a game, in the championship game. That's the most ever. Mac Jones finished with a career completion percentage of 77.4%, the highest in FBS history. And you can just go on and on and on. Our props to the University of Alabama here from today's sports report. And maybe we'll get our good friend Tim Ferguson, who is the big Alabama football fan that we talked to earlier in the season. He just one of them boys that sits up there in the stands and says, "Roll Tide," and maybe we can get him on soon because I kind of owe him Yeah, we have these little challenges, and I kind of owe him an opportunity to gloat all over me for the University of Alabama. Just nothing really much more you can say about a great game. Alabama finished the season 13-0. When many people didn't think that the season would be possible. Here comes Alabama. They played 13 games, won, of course, every one of them. For Saban, it was career title number 7 overall, breaking a tie with Alabama great Paul Bear Bryant for the most by a major college football coach. Mac Jones had an absolutely great game. Alabama won 11 SEC games. No other team has ever done that. They won the SEC, went undefeated in the SEC, beat 2 great teams in the playoffs, had no break in it whatsoever. The game was played, by the way. Mac Jones had a pretty good game in the championship game. He was 36 for 45 and 464 yards and five touchdowns. Najee Harris, 158 yards, 29 runs. There may be some NFL teams that would have a lot of trouble with the University of Alabama. So, Matthew, here's the thing. Here we are now, the University of Alabama, our SEC brother, winning the national championship and bringing the national championship in college football back to where it belongs in the SEC. So, okay, now, everybody else from the country and the SEC looks at Alabama and sees what they have accomplished. And then all the fan base from all of these different colleges come together and say, why can't we do that? So asking on behalf of Georgia fans, why can't we do that? What do you think? What's it going to take for Georgia to get?
Well, I mean, Georgia's just really, Georgia's had some great teams over the years, and just, you look back and you look back to 2017 when Georgia was probably the closest, in our era. Jake Fromm takes us to the college football playoff national championship, and and in a lot of ways, I mean, people still believe that Georgia won that national championship when you look at some of the calls that were made during the game that led, the offsides with Tyler Simmons and whatnot. Either way, I mean, at the end of the day, Georgia was, fourth down, should have, Alabama had a long way to go, and Georgia just didn't finish the game on defense. You had seniors back there that made some mistakes, and that's when Tua was, introduced to the world and beat Georgia. And Georgia just really has not, I look at Alabama's football teams, and they always seem to have, for whatever reason, just a stellar unit from quarterback to running back. And then especially, I think the biggest gap between Georgia and Alabama has been at the wide receiver position. Georgia has had a lot of great backs. I mean, we've had a lot of good quarterbacks. I mean, they could throw the ball or be a good game manager. But the one thing that Georgia has lacked in terms of a comparison with Alabama is at the wide receiver position. Alabama always seems to have the wide receivers that can get it done, and a quarterback who can throw the ball to those wide receivers pretty much at will. And I think that's been the biggest difference. I think that's the hump that Georgia has to get over. I think the focus for Georgia football in terms of recruiting would be recruiting guys like what we're starting to see with the Georgia offense with George Pickens and Jermaine Burton and guys like that. I think until you recruit guys like that on a consistent basis and very heavily, I don't believe that Georgia will get the job done. So I think there's a lot of potential for Georgia to get it done. I just think the wide receiver position is the biggest position that Georgia lacks in.
Yeah, and of course we get the running backs. We always do. But we do get the wide receivers, but they need to be a little more, I think, consistent and more of a game breaker type players, all of them, in the games that we play. So we'll put a wrap on that. Alabama, congratulations, bringing and if you're an SEC kind of guy, you're happy that the national championship in college football in this weird season of 2020 has come home to where it belongs. And that, of course, is in the SEC. Well, let's turn a little bit now to Georgia football news. Of course, Georgia ended the season with a great win over Cincinnati. And we've been talking about the next game. You always talk about the next game. Now, it's a little ways away, 8 months away, and hopefully by then we'll be able to get back to college football as normal with what's happening now with COVID-19, and people are getting their vaccinations and that kind of thing. Hopefully, prayerfully, everyone will be safe, and we'll get back to a lot of normality in our society, especially, and for us with college football. But let's talk a little bit about Georgia Bulldog news now. We've been getting some good news about players who have decided to come back for the 2021 season. And University of Georgia has been getting a lot of good news here lately that players have decided, no, we're not going to the NFL. And even some of the seniors who can come back, they're saying, hey, we want to come back. And the thing I'm noticing is unfinished business is the hashtag that a lot of these guys will put coinciding with their decision to return. JT Daniels will be back for next year. That is very positive news for the University of Georgia. Zamir White this past Wednesday said, hey, I'm coming back. I'm not going to go into the NFL as of yet. And he put a big hashtag of unfinished business attached to his announcement. Also, White's decision means that Georgia will have all of its tailbacks from this season coming back next year. You'll have Zamir White, James Cook, Kenny McIntosh, Dejon Edwards, and Kendall Milton. All of these players rushed for 1,744 yards, averaged a little over 5 yards per carry in 2020. 9 of its 10 games coming against SEC opponents. And so we've been getting some good news, hadn't we, Matthew, about guys coming back saying, hey, we want to play for Georgia in 2021. And it just feels like this team says, we have potential maybe to make a big splash in college football next year. That's good news, right, with our players coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the decision of JT Daniels is critical for Georgia, especially with his pace of play and the way he was playing. Every game he progressed, he got better. And then to have all of your running backs come back, is really, it's kind of unheard of. I mean, I even saw articles out there about how you were gonna, how in the world are you gonna keep all these tailbacks happy?
Yeah, I know.
With that many tailbacks coming back. So definitely great news on that end as well. I mean, it never hurts to know that JT Daniels is going to have those wide receivers to throw to. I really expect Georgia, and then the hashtag unfinished business. I think these guys believe that they can come back and win a national title together. I think they believe that with JT Daniels at the helm, and I believe they believe that, and so that's a big thing for them, big motivator for them together as a team unit, and it's also a big, of course, a big happy thing for Georgia Bulldog fans. I mean, absolutely, very excited about what's to come.
Well, let me share with you quickly now for everyone a list of every Georgia starter who's coming back next year. JT Daniels at quarterback, Zamir White, George Pickens, wide receiver, Jermaine Burton, wide receiver, Darnell Washington, tight end, John Fitzpatrick, tight end, Jamari Saylor, offensive line, Justin Schaefer, offensive guard, Warren McClendon, offensive tackle, Jordan Davis, nose guard, he's coming back, Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle, Nakobe Dean, inside linebacker, Chris Smith, strong safety, Lewis Sign, safety as well. All of those guys who are starters, and many of them started most of the season. All of those guys have said that we're coming back. Now, Georgia will have some significant losses coming from last year until next year. Trey Hill will not be back with Georgia. Ojulari, the outside linebacker, won't be back. Tyson Campbell, cornerback. Eric Stokes, cornerback. All of those are seniors. and they're leaving for the NFL draft, they hope. And Jermaine Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson. That really hurt. Going into the transfer portal doesn't mean necessarily that they won't be with Georgia, but they have entered into the portal. So, I was reading a couple of articles. Georgia has lost significant players, but have significant players coming back. And then you have a very good recruiting class, and you have some freshmen coming in next year who can really make an impact and really play almost immediately for Georgia. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Now, the big area of concern is in the defensive backfield. And we've lost some significant players in the defensive backfield. And with the way offenses are now, with the way they're throwing the ball now, that's a little cause for concern, especially when you're going to go up against Alabama, perhaps somewhere in the season of 2021, and other teams that'll have some pretty sharp quarterbacks. So what have you been hearing about the defensive backfield? That seems to be, for this offseason, really an area of concern. I know we have some young players coming in. It takes them a little time to get their feet on the ground as they come into the college type of football. So what are you hearing, Matthew? What are we going to do about our defensive backfield? Are we going to be okay, or what do we need to do?
I think, you're losing Tyson Campbell. I mean, of course, Eric Stokes. I mean, both those guys were big contributors. And just like you said, Stevenson. I mean, look, in there as well, outside linebacker Johnson. I mean, you got some guys that are in the portal, some guys that are not going to be there. I mean, and then of course you add in Trey Hill, who was center. I mean, you lose your center, that's kind of a scary thing. But I think that it will be next man up. I think Georgia's going to be just fine. Now that being said, the next man up will have to be well prepared for face a passing offense, because you're seeing more and more the offenses that are out there that Georgia, is playing, the various offenses. I mean, it's more pass heavy. I mean, even if it involves the running back. And, when you lose secondary defenders, I mean, that kind of makes you, a little bit scared, because then you're having to put a freshman out there and you're worried to death whether or not he's ready or whether or not he's going to get burnt. And oftentimes, your opposing teams will pick on that particular player on purpose. Just for that mere fact of their inexperience, and so it really puts a spotlight on those players that have to fill those shoes and those roles. But I think Georgia will be with the recruiting class and the guys that have been sitting on the sidelines ready to go in. I think Georgia will be just fine.
Yeah, we recruit at a high level. The number one recruiting class for the last 3 previous years until this year. Number 5, according to Rivals this year, but still you're recruiting at a high level, and these guys are good. And so it's time for them to step up, and we can't wait. I know it's 8 months away, but we can't wait. And a lot of people are saying, okay, now the football season is over. What are you guys going to talk about? Well, next time we get together, we're going to talk a little bit about UGA basketball. The basketball team's having a so-so season. They've had some bright spots at Stegman Coliseum, but they're not quite there yet. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll always keep our eye on what's happening with UGA football. And we're looking forward during the offseason to having some special guests. No commitments, but some former University of Georgia players who are now in the NFL. We're looking to have them on today's Sports Report. So it's always good to kind of hang around with us. We're going to take a break, but before we do, we want to give a shout out to Mike Farrell from Rivals.com. Mike's a good friend of ours. He's been on our program several times. He's the godfather. I love that. He's the godfather of recruiting with Rivals.com. And boy, the last few days I've been keeping up with him. He's been having a ball with the off season and his players of the year and the different lists that he has. He's tireless when it comes to sharing information about college football. We want to give a shout out to Mike Farrell. He's a good friend of ours, a good friend of our program, and we appreciate him coming on occasions and talking with us and keeping us up to date. And I love it that he's on TikTok now. And I just, it's kind of a TikTok kind of thing, but he's on TikTok now. But shout out to Mike Farrell at Rivals.com. Also, we want to give a shout out to Southeast Mortgage, the official home lender of the University of Georgia Bulldogs. It's been kind of they're good friends of ours as well. It's been kind of a weird season, and we always want to keep in contact with those folks. They're great supporters of the University of Georgia. And I know that you have a good relationship with those folks at Southeast Mortgage. And so we want to give a shout out to those folks, and you can find them at their website and on their Facebook page. And they are great supporters of UGA. So I know you want to say hello to our good friends at Southeast Mortgage, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I also want to give a shout out, I'll go ahead and say it to Mike Farrell too. I mean, appreciate all his help, and his willingness to come on the show with us and provide his expertise. And also with Southeast Mortgage, I've worked with them the last couple of years. I mean, they are the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs. They sell homes in multiple states. If you're looking for a home in the upper, region of Georgia, I mean, they're really, exceptional people at what they do and can provide you with what you need in that realm, of living. So definitely want to give a shout out to them and their support and their partnership, no doubt. Appreciating them so much.
Yeah, great folks. And, it's a stressful thing to try to buy a home because you're trying to sell yours and you're trying to buy buy another home. And the people at Southeast Mortgage understand that, and they'll do everything they can to make the process smooth and enjoyable. We also want to give a shout out to Hall Sports Photography. Hall Photography. That's your baby, and we're going to play a commercial showing some of your products here in just a moment. And also for Happy Sewing and Quilting. Good folks at Happy Sewing and Quilting. They have a new website, happysewingandquilting.com. And everybody is now, we apparently we're going to have to wear our mask outside now for the next several months. That's what we're being told. Well, you don't want to go outside and just wear a plain Jane old mask. You want to show off your Bulldog pride, and you'll see some of the products that Happy Sewing and Quilting offers in just a moment. And again, they have a new website, happysewingandquilting.com, happysewingandquilting.com. So Matthew, you're a great photographer. We're going to show off some of your work now here, and then we'll also take a peek at what the good folks at Happy Sewing and Quilting have to offer. And we'll be back in just...
Don't go away. We'll be back in just a moment with more of today's Sports Report with Matthew Hall.
Hall Shots Photography, featuring the work of award-winning photographer and Georgia football lover Matthew Hall, is a proud sponsor of today's Sports Report. While Matthew is at home on the sidelines of Sanford Stadium taking beautiful action shots of another Bulldog victory, he also specializes in other types of photography, including landscapes, portraits, weddings, and emotional photos to help promote your business or your special cause. Matthew is also a trained videographer, and he loves capturing those always exciting high-in-the-sky drone shots. Matthew has been the camp photographer for various football camps, including those featuring Roquan Smith, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and other Bulldog greats. You can check out Matthew's work on Facebook at Hall Shots and on Instagram at Hall Shots Photography. You can contact Matt Hall Shots Photography at gmail.com. That's hallshotsphotography@gmail.com. Matthew has a camera, and he'll travel to get that right shot for you. Contact him today.
Happy Sewing and Quilting is a sponsor of today's Sports Report. Happy Sewing and Quilting offers custom and professionally made items that will help you show your Bulldog pride. How about a custom and professionally made 100% cotton face mask featuring beautiful Bulldog fabric? Of course, everyone needs more than one. And just like the Bulldogs on game day, Happy Sewing and Quilting can and will deliver. From custom-made face masks to tote bags and more, Happy Sewing and Quilting will help you get ready for game day or any day you want to let the world know you love the Georgia Bulldogs. If you're interested in items featuring the colors and logos of other teams, or if you're interested in non-sports related items that meet your taste and show off your style, Happy Sewing and Quilting will be more than happy to help you. For more information, you can contact Happy Sewing and Quilting at ahall1921@hotmail.com. That's AHALL1921@hotmail.com. Contact them today.
Thank you for joining us, and welcome back to today's Sports Report with Matthew Hall.
All right, we're back on today's Sports Report with Matthew Hall. Well, we're going to wrap up our program looking at way too early polls for next year in college football. The lights were barely out of at Hard Rock Stadium after the game the other night in which Alabama won over Ohio State, when the pundits began to churn out their top 10, top 20, top 25 picks for next year. 2021. And so there's just, everybody has these, and there's just too many to look at. I thought we'd kind of focus on three of them. One of them, of course, the reason why I want to focus on this one is this dude has Georgia number one in his 2021 college football rankings. It's Joel Klatt. And Joel Klatt is a good guy. He's a pretty sharp guy from Fox Sports College football. He's an analyst for Fox Sports College football, and he's a pretty sharp guy and has his pulse on a lot of things in college football. And he has here's his top 10 for next year. And this is, of course, way too early, but here's his top 10. He has Georgia number one, UGA number one. He has Alabama number two, Oklahoma number three, Ohio State number four, Clemson at number five, Iowa State, the Cyclones, go for it at number six. Indiana at number seven. When is the last time you saw Indiana? The Hoosiers had a great year this year in the top 10 in college football, usually in basketball maybe, but not in football. Miami, Klatt has Miami, the Hurricanes at number 8, North Carolina at number 9, and Notre Dame, you got to have Notre Dame in there somewhere, at number 10. So what do you think about Joel Klatt's prediction that UGA will start the season at least at number one next year? What do you think about that?
I mean, of course, any Georgia fan would be ecstatic to say, "Hey, Georgia's number one." But in a way, I really don't like for Georgia to be ranked number one.
You don't want to be a target, right?
Because part of the reason is back it makes me reminisce back to when Georgia had Matthew Stafford, O'Shawn Moreno, and AJ Green, and we were ranked number one to start that season. I mean, they placed them all over Sports Illustrated, plastered them all over Sports Illustrated at the beginning of the season. And we lost to South Carolina, and that kind of ruined our SEC chances, and then it ruined our chances to be champions that year. So, but we started off number one that season. So, I mean, number one does put a target on your back. It puts a lot of heavy responsibility. Also can make a team's head explode in terms of pride. And I'm not talking about the good kind of pride. So, I don't really particularly. Yeah, I love Georgia. If his predictions come out to be correct at the end of the season, I mean, great. I mean, that's going to be what I exactly want. But I'm not a guy that really likes to be, for Georgia to be placed number one. I don't mind being placed in the top 5.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been a good thing for Georgia to be number one in the early polls for the past several years. All right, let's go to our good friend Mike Farrell from Rivals.com. He had his way too early top 10 pick for 2021. He has Oklahoma number one. He's really a big Rattler fan, the quarterback for Oklahoma, and he thinks he might be the Heisman Trophy winner next year. Mike has Oklahoma number one. He has Georgia number 2. So he has the Bulldogs up there. He has Alabama number 3. Alabama losing a ton of significant players from their team. But, of course, I mean, they reload every year. So there you go. He has and Mike has Clemson number 4, Ohio State number 5, Texas A&M. Interestingly, he has them at number 6. Now, Klatt didn't have Texas A&M in his top 10 at all. Mike has North Carolina number 7, and Mike has Cincinnati at number 8. He's really sold on Cincinnati, and he has Florida number 9. Klatt didn't have Florida in his top 10 at all, and Oregon. Mike Farrell has Oregon at number 10. So our good friend, the godfather of college recruiting. Kind of interesting. Klatt doesn't have Florida in there. Florida, yeah, Dan Mullen, he may be going to the NFL, and if he will, but whatever, you can always depend on Dan Mullen to say some kind of interesting things, but we won't get into that. So I don't know. Mike, he's sold on Cincinnati, has Florida in there. Texas A&M, what do you think about his top 10? Kind of interesting, his top 10, but who knows, right? What do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, you're just like you said. I mean, everyone's gonna, especially in the way too early top tens or whatever they come up with, top fives or whatever. I mean, you're gonna see a wide range of teams placed in there depending on who the person is. I mean, Mike, pretty good on target guy here. I mean, I look at his top 10 and I like his top 10 better than personally, I like, even though Georgia's number 1 in Klatt's, I actually like Farrell's top 10, the look of it, better than Klatt's overall. I would be willing to bank on Cincinnati being back in the fold. I think they're a team that's going to come back with, a lot of steam and play, have a good season and really try to fight to be in this thing. Texas A&M, I mean, good team. I mean, So
they'll have a new quarterback. They'll be.
I mean
Kelly Bond will be gone, but I think they have a pretty good 5-star guy waiting in the wings at Texas.
Yeah, I mean you do lose the experience with Kellen Mond. I mean his experience, which is a big loss. I would consider it's a big loss for Texas A&M. Keeping them in their top, I mean at 6, I'm not really sure if I'm sold on that quite as much, but. But depending on who the quarterback is, I mean, they could come right out and be, you could fall right into Mond's shoe steps and be better than Mond. I mean, you just don't know. But I mean, he got Florida in there. I like the look of it. Plus, he didn't put us number 1 with a target on our back.
Yeah. So. Mike took care of us. And finally, and we'll wrap it up with this. ESPN. Here's their top 10. And of course, ESPN. It's ESPN. ESPN has Clemson number 1, Alabama number 2, Oklahoma number 3, and ESPN has Georgia number 4, Ohio State 5, Texas A&M 6, North Carolina 7, Iowa State 8, and they have Southern Cal, the Trojans, at number 9. Now, Mike and Klatt, Farrell and Klatt do not have USC in their top 10. And then ESPN winds it out or rounds out their top 10 with the Indiana Hoosiers. So a couple of, way too early top 10s. Kind of interesting. Now we have 8 long months. So now we have recruiting time coming up. And next time we kind of focus on recruiting. We have the early recruiting time. And most of you players that are going to sign with Georgia have signed in the early recruiting time. But there could be, in February, there could be some additions to Georgia's class as well as to other college classes as well. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on Georgia basketball, Georgia football. If the tennis team comes through, we're going to keep an eye on that as well. And the golf day, everything UGA. And, of course, we'll focus in on the football team as well in the coming seasons, and we'll take a little peek into the professional leagues as we get close to, and we'll look at the UGA players on professional rosters that are still around and with the playoff teams. So we've got a lot to talk about in the coming weeks. But Matthew, it's been a good program today. I love your hat and the styling with the UGA. That's old school there. And so I love that. So we love the Georgia Bulldogs. Again, shout out to Mike Farrell, Southeast Mortgage, Hall Shots Photography. Check them out on Facebook and Instagram, and Happy Sewing and Quilting. We appreciate all those folks and the great support they give us here at today's Sports Report. So, Matthew, final word to you.
Well, appreciate the support from everybody out there. And again, big shout out to Mike Farrell, also Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs. Appreciate all that they do. and everything that they do with us, to help us in so many ways. And of course, as always, going to leave it with this: go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next time on today's Sports Report with Matt.